Welcome to day 61. We are looking at Numbers chapters 30 and 31 and Mark 9. So, chapter 30 is talking about making vows. This is mainly for men and women, kind of marriage relationship stuff, fathers with daughters who are about to get married and so forth, and how we need to be faithful to the agreements, the vows that we make to God and others. As I was going through there, it's a whole chapter just on these vows of men and women. And it gets a little bit convoluted. If it's this situation, do that. If it's that situation, do that. And a lot of us these days feel like we are living in a very complicated world. Like there are too many laws, rules, regulations, and we would like a simpler time. Well, this is 3,000 years ago, and it's still not very simple. The reality is, when we are in relationships with each other, it's messy, it's complicated. We've always needed to have a lot of rules and regulations to figure out how to live with each other. So I think one of the lessons from reading this section, even though it seems very far away and not connected to our lives today, is that when we want to make things simpler, what are we losing in the process? Is there a reason we've developed some of the rules and regulations we have? Are we going to be harming someone if we try to get rid of a bunch of rules and regulations? It is hard, it is messy, it's complicated, it takes a long time, but I think we have to really think about, when we want to simplify things, are there going to be unintended consequences, and is there someone who might be harmed in the process of simplification? We may just need to put up with having a complicated life in order to be able to care for all the people around us. The next chapter is about the Midian War. And the thing I really want to emphasize here, because there's going to be a whole lot of wars coming up as the Israelites move into the promised land. The biggest thing to remember is this is not literal. Do not take this literally, that every man, woman, and child, every animal was killed. This is a literary form that was common in this place and this time. Everyone in the region, all of the documents that we have from back then speak this way when they talk about military victories. They always talk about killing everyone. But it's not possible they could have ever done that, because we have documentation of how many people were living at the time, and they weren't going around killing absolutely everyone. Did they destroy entire villages? Yes. But people would scatter, people would move on. Sometimes they would be enslaved, sometimes they became servants. But do not read this as literal. The numbers in Numbers are not literal. The death counts in Numbers are not literal. This is a literary genre, and we need to keep that in mind as we're reading through there. Looking at Mark, we've got three of the disciples who follow Jesus up on top of a mountain, and they have a special experience called the Transfiguration. Moses and Elijah appear and are talking to Jesus in front of the three disciples. Now, Peter at this time wants to make a physical monument to remember what happened. There's a long tradition of this. If something important happens, you put up a stone. Early in Genesis, we saw some standing stones where a stone was erected that was tall and strong. And when people would come by, they'd say, hey, something important happened here. And they could ask someone, say, what happened? And they could tell them something about what God had done. But this is not God's plan. And Jesus is just dismissive of Peter's idea. They go down the hill. Jesus is like, don't talk about this until everything is done, and then you can talk about this. The thing I reflect on reading this today is, how often do we want to come up with a physical manifestation of something that's happened? We want photos. And now, I mean, the number of data centers that are having to be built all around the world for all the photos that we have put on Facebook and Instagram and all the videos we're putting on YouTube, it is astronomical. What about all the stuff that we fill up our house, all of the souvenirs that we bring back from trips, all of the plaques and monuments and statues that we put up in our churches and in our communities? We are surrounded by stuff that we have put up to remember something that happened. Now, it's not to say that these important events were not important. They were. But I think Jesus wants us to remember them more like Mary did when the wise men came and the shepherds came. She carried these things in her heart. She didn't put up a monument in Bethlehem marking the place that she gave birth. How often are we burdened by the memories, all the stuff that we have to organize and take care of, all the insurance we need for a bigger house, for all of our stuff, all of the times that we have to take care of statues and plaques that are out in our community? I wonder if memories and rituals instead of plaques and statues isn't what is a healthier way for us to remember what God has done for us. Now we have this story of the father with the epileptic son. He believes in Jesus, and he had brought him the son to the disciples who could not heal him. Jesus shows up and is like, "Ah, what is wrong with you people? It takes faith and prayer to heal this." Now, the thing about this story is lots of us then read it and say, is my faith strong enough? Are my prayers right and strong enough? And I think the Father here gives us a prayer that all of us can use at all times. I believe, help my unbelief. It kind of covers everything. If we have some doubts, if we have some anxiety, if we're not quite sure we're there, we can say, I believe, help my unbelief. And this is a great way to continue walking with Jesus and continue growing with Jesus without having to carry the anxiety. The last story here is the argument among the disciples over who's best, who's greatest, who's in first place, who's in last. Who cares? Jesus clearly does not care about hierarchy. He doesn't care about succession. He doesn't care about prominence. He doesn't care. He just doesn't care. It is not important to him. He wants us to be serving others. He wants us to help children and less fortunate people get a place towards God. Jesus is like, if there's some part of your body, like your hand or your eye, that's separating you from God and preventing you from being close to Jesus, get rid of it. Jesus, again, not literally is saying to pull out your eye or to cut off your arm. Jesus is being ironic, sarcastic. He's exaggerating here. It's a literary device. What he's saying is that everyone should have a place at Jesus' side. All of us can be there. Our job is to help people get to Jesus' side. Our job is to make sure everyone has a place with Jesus. It doesn't matter what the line is. Help everyone get to Jesus. Hope you have a great day helping other people see Jesus' grace and love in their lives. We'll see you next time.